Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. We have an awesome podcast today. Today, we're going to be discussing how to manage personal growth amidst the chaos of life. And we're going to be doing that with a special guest, Josh Bryant. Hello, Josh.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Robert.
Oh, gosh, thank you. That thank you definitely goes towards you.
Okay.
So I appreciate you very much. And I want to give the listeners a little bit of a background. If they don't know who
Sure.
you are, they definitely should. You are worth knowing. And
Yeah.
so a couple highlights I have written down is like lifting accomplishments. You were the youngest person to bench press 600 pounds at the time you did it. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yep. You also have deadlifted 800 pounds, which I believe you said was a huge accomplishment given the fact that your arms are not very long.
Right. 8'10".
Yes, I have very short arms as well. Okay, that's awesome. 8'10". So you have a 22.94 powerlifting total.
Yes, sir.
Incredible. Strongest man in America in 2005.
That's right.
Yeah, so you have done everything under the sun, and I guarantee there's more that I could keep naming. And then I want to touch on like coaching accomplishments. I don't know if this is an actual title, but I believe you've coached the most 600 plus pound bench pressers probably ever.
I think it's definitely true. I don't know of a title for it, but I think it's a true statement.
Yes. So, and then you've trained people to just insane world records and awesome accomplishments. You've trained also bodybuilders, so not
Yep.
just strength. You've trained Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson,
Yes, sir.
and then I'm sure several others. But I remember like watching the videos of you training Branch and Johnny, and it was
Okay.
just
Cool.
crazy motivating. You've also trained a lot of D1 and professional athletes, and you have written a personal training course for ISSA, correct?
Two of them. So the tactical strength and conditioning that's
Yes.
geared more towards like law enforcement, military, and fire, as well as the bodybuilding one.
Oh, that's freaking awesome. So I do want to give them that background. And then you have your website, joshstrength.com.
Yep.
So people can, if they want to work with you one on one, actually, one of my current clients has worked with you in the past. He's working with
Oh,
me for nutrition, but
awesome.
he absolutely loved working with you.
Okay.
So
Good.
that was really cool that came up in a recent conversation, and here we are talking today.
Awesome.
And you have an outrageous number of ebooks. I have looked them up because I wanted to like give the titles, and I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many. So that was very impressive, given what I believe your workload is, and then trying to manage, family and regular life to also write all the ebooks is a huge accomplishment.
I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it. Where,
Yeah.
so where are you located at? I just know you from online. Where are you located at?
I'm actually in South Carolina. It's just underneath Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I had a gym, and now I'm doing exclusively like online coaching for people.
Oh, cool.
So I'm absolutely loving it, and so you've been somebody that I've watched kind of how you do things, and imitation is the greatest form of flattery, they
There you
say.
go.
So I can't imitate you because I want to be me, but you are definitely a great inspiration.
I
I
appreciate
could
it.
I
Thank you.
could be a better you than you are. so
True
I
for
just
anybody,
figured
right? No one can be a better version of somebody else.
yes, that's the goal. So I appreciate actually the three people who I have really watched a lot in my career were Louis Simmons, John Meadows, and you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Good
and
company to be
it's
in.
oh yeah. I'm happy to be talking to you. So that makes me a good company. Um, so what I wanted to do today,
Yep.
I wanted to get through that stuff so that we people have a good background. And I've watched a lot of your content, and one of the things I wanted to touch on that I don't see often discussed in podcasts is just how you manage personal growth while trying to be successful in business, while trying to have successful relationships. And I see people like you seemingly doing it very well because you can only see what's on social media.
Mhm.
And it's something I thought would just be awesome to touch on in a podcast because
Sure.
I know a lot of my clients struggle with that. So one of the things, just throwing it out there, is one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is when they have a lot to do in life, is deciding on what is important versus what's urgent. sometimes
Right.
there's things that seem urgent, but they're not that important. And then things that are really important, but we often put them at the wayside because there's more urgent things in the way.
Mhm.
How do you manage that for yourself? Like, how do you keep track of what's important versus what's urgent?
I think with anything, it's just comes down to priorities, and I think the main thing is that has helped me do this is we all can improve on time management and those type of things, but is mainly cutting out non-essential. So I know people have talked about look at like, what you spend, 20% of your time on and stuff and or 80% whatever and get rid of it. And I think that's kind of a big thing. So I think, when you manage your time well and you focus on your priorities, there is in general going to be less urgency. So it's not so much, you know, like you talked about nutrition earlier, like I used to bodybuilding, like how do you diet? Like no, you're not. I wasn't. I just didn't put myself in bad situations. I didn't have, wasn't like there's cookies over there I'm going to stare at and like I'm so great. I'm not going to eat them. Like I don't get around that stuff. So I think when you prioritize things, there is less urgency. And by having that, when there is something urgent, people will like do like for online coaching, for example, ask anybody. It's not like I'm like, oh, dude, sorry, I got this late to you. Like, I had this urgent situation. I don't do that very often. And I think if I did, people are like, oh, they're not going to question it because they know I don't do that. So I don't think it's like I have a better system of dealing with it. I think I have better planning up front so that things that are urgent are not, there's not so much urgency because if you take care of business, there are urgent situations like that you can't account for and you just have to deal with that when that happens. But for the most part, I think a majority of it, if you're living in like the United States, it can be, dealt with by planning ahead. So I don't think I have a better system. I think I should have better planning that would appear that way.
That wonderful answer. And uh, the reason why is because that's what I tell my clients all the time, and that's what I tell myself. Is
Mhm.
often if I prioritize what my needs are and I plan them ahead of time, my a lot of my decisions are already made.
There
So
you
when I
go.
come to a pass, a fork in the road, if I already know what my higher priority is, my decision's already made, and I don't feel like I'm as reactive throughout the day. I'm more proactive and more planned ahead, which does tend to help
100%.
a lot. Yeah. How do you plan your day? Like, do you plan a week at a time? Do you plan kind of a day at a time?
I would plan a day to days at a time. So probably more like if like for example, um, like next weekend I'll be gone.
Mm.
Doing a seminar in Phoenix, and I just did one in Kansas City. And I'm gonna be here this weekend. So you know what I mean? So like that, like I planned that was way ahead. I'm looking, okay, my kids got sports games and stuff. Okay, when can I not miss it? Like when can I get the flight in? That kind of stuff. So that's planned way ahead. But of like day to day is like, tomorrow, like, okay, I'll give you an example of like priorities. Like tomorrow, my daughter's about to be 3. I'm gonna take her to the zoo tomorrow. So
Oh,
to go to the zoo tomorrow, I'm gonna have to stay up late tonight. So like since I'm not competing anymore, I stay in good shape, but I'm not like if I'm going like, basically the way I see it now is to not get injured and stuff, I'll push myself to like 95% of my extremes. I think a lot of those injuries happen the last 5%. So for example,
that's true.
just say like if you're trying to deadlift 600, that's 570. Like the odds of getting hurt setting that goal when you're capable of that would be less. Or like
Mm.
sprinting, if you're not going quite 100%, you're going, 95%. It's a lot less. So what I'll do is like, I think I realize I'm going to have to stay up late tonight and sacrifice an hour or two sleep.
Yeah.
Now I look at that, to me, that's worth the trade-off. You say, well, the benefits of sleep. Yeah, but I think the benefits of spending time with my daughter and maintaining my business are more supersede the sleep.
Yeah.
So things like that. So I'm planning it out way in advance, but this came up on Monday. So you generally a few days out if there's nothing big coming up, because I think you don't know what's going to happen and you don't want to become like, if you're working mostly online, the same time you don't want to become a robot either, where like everything's exactly planned out and you have
Mhm.
room for flexibility. Because if that's the case, then why are you going to do this anyways? Because I mean, it's fun to work with people and help people, but you do want some sort of personal freedom. Like, people
Absolutely.
think if you do work online that you're going to like like they basically viewed as one, some people that are in the field, like, oh, that guy's successful. He must just never like leave this room and, see nobody. And other people are thinking, at gyms only think, oh yeah, he probably sends one email a day that he's out by the pool having Mai Tais or something. And I think the reality is you do have more flexibility and you do have more freedom, but you require a hell of a lot more discipline too. And that's what people don't see is like, yeah, I got way more freedom. If I want to meet you for coffee at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, let's do it. But then that's gonna be made up for somewhere else. It's not just like, oh yeah, we're meeting for coffee at 10 a.m. Screw it, I don't have anything else to do. Like it's just a
Mm-hmm.
prioritization like that. So generally a few days out, but when it's something big, I'll plan way out.
Yeah, and that absolutely makes sense. As you plan what you can, then you're kind of fluid and make the decisions as you go as you need. Yeah,
Right.
and then I
The
think
other
you
thing would
even
be
know.
like get a lot of work done for when other people are sleeping. So either like
Yes.
my best work is going to be done early before everybody's up or late when people go
Yeah.
to sleep. And like, so I'm a good sleeper. So I don't have a very big problem of adjusting, going to bed at 8 o'clock and getting up at 4, or like staying up to 11 and getting up at like 6 or 7, like
Mm,
for what, like, luckily I'm a pretty good sleeper. So I can adjust that pretty easily without much of a problem.
yeah. That's
Like I had it like initially, I
mhm.
just would like to stay up. Like initially my work pattern was get a lot done late at night.
Mm,
And my kids were starting to do stuff. I was like, okay, I get a lot done in the morning. They get into sports. Now it's becoming like, well, be a little more flexible, but do your best to plan ahead of like, okay, this week's going to be more of like a late night week where I'm getting a lot done from like, besides during the day, get it done like 8 to 11 or something at night. Where next week could be, okay, they don't really have much late. So I'm going to be kicking ass like 4 a.m. to 7. Well, get them up about 6:30. So whatever that is. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, and that's definitely. I think so often people believe that they have to set this routine that has to be in place every day, otherwise you can't be successful. But what I've seen with clients is success kind of happens when you can take advantage of the opportunities you have.
A lot of times. So I think probably the way to look at it would be, if you're undisciplined with your time, you do need a routine, like probably stick to it like really strictly. But
Mhm.
you habitually become somebody that gets done what you need to get done, then you can look at being like more flexible. It's just like training. The average person probably needs a really rigid plan with no deviation. But as you evolve, we can add and need to add more flexibility in there just because you've evolved that way. So I think that's how we gotta look at this too, is like, be disciplined in your goal, but
Mhm.
flexible in your approach once you've earned sort of that like right, if you will, of being
Yeah,
flexible.
yeah, yeah. That's a very good phrase. Yes. Now, when it comes to your own kind of self care,
Hold
what
on,
do you? Oh, that's okay.
I won't turn it off. Go ahead.
When it comes to your self care, what do you prioritize in regards to nutrition? Like, do you lightly track calories or protein throughout the day, or how do you manage healthy nutrition?
So, well, I've been doing something pretty interesting lately.
Mm-hmm.
Is just I've been eating like nothing I would consider unhealthy, if that makes sense. Like if like I've done a lot of, so I've tried like every kind of approach,
Yeah.
and fortunately for me, most have worked if I do them. Like I understand there are people that have like gut issues and that, and like can whatever, and they don't do well. Like if I want to drop body fat, I can, or gain weight even, I could do it on keto. I could do it on intermittent fasting. I could do it on the old school like high protein, low fat, moderate carb kind of bodybuilding 80s 90s approach. Um right now I've been just doing stuff of like literally I haven't had a quote unquote like cheat meal kind of bad food in like, in probably 6 weeks or so. And I've been feeling pretty good with that. And I'm curious what will happen if I'm just eating as much as like till I feel full kind of thing versus like, tracking calories or anything. So far doing that, I think I've dropped about 2 pounds. So it's like I feel
Oh,
better,
nice.
but like it's not like I'm trying to like lose weight or gain weight. It's just I was curious what would happen if I just made good nutritional choices and make sure I get over my body weight and protein per day in grams. So like, anywhere from I'm about 250. So, usually closer to like 275 to 300 grams a day. and just like, make better decisions that way. And because the problem I've had in the past is generally like getting really rigid on an approach and doing really well with it. But then it becomes I've never been somebody that's been good at, I'm just going to do lifestyle choices. It's either going to be like, I'm on this diet and like, I don't budge and I take pride in like showing up somewhere where everybody else is having something else. So I'm going to stick to what I'm doing. And like, that's that. Or, you know, it's, I'm taking a break right now. I'm just going to eat as much as I can of whatever I want. So I'm doing this and feeling good on it.
Good. Yeah, that works. Yeah. And then for training, what
But
do you
honestly,
prioritize?
I'll say this, I've never, even doing
Yeah.
bodybuilding stuff, getting super lean, I've never really counted calories much. I've just changed like the sources of like, for example, like you want to go down a level, okay, so change the steak out for like chicken breast or that kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
like obviously it's calories in versus calories out, and that's how it's getting to lower calories. But it's never been like, oh, I'm like at 3,100 now, so next week I'm going to be like 2,800, and I've obviously I know that works as science, and then coaching people that way that are real rigid in their approach. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. And those substitutions work. Like people will go from, say, rice, and then they'll cut the same amount of, like, same volume, but do peas because that cuts
exactly
the carbs in half. And then you can do the same volume in corn because that cuts the carbs again in half. So, yeah, you can definitely do like substitutional reductions. And then
for
that way
sure.
you're not doing math all day.
Yep.
Yeah. Hmm. Now, when it comes to your training, what do you prioritize? What do you make sure you get in every training session or every week? What's the biggest priorities for you?
So that would be a couple of them here. So one is I'm really focusing right now on my aerobic base. So I've been doing a lot of rucking and stairmaster with a
Yeah.
weighted vest. I like the rucking better, but I really like the stairmaster with weighted vest because of how measurable it is. And there's like no like I find like some of the rucking is like I'll be like, instead of keeping like a steady pace, like, oh, I got to really speed it up, or like, okay, I don't want to go too far today because I'm going to like slowly increase what I'm doing. So I've started off way too far. So now I'm just kind of dragging my feet to like not get too far ahead too. Where the
Yeah.
Stairmaster, the nice part is like, I like the mathematics of it. And I also I like being outdoors, but I like to be able to like, I have it upstairs here and nobody's up there. So I'll put on like an audio book and I listen to a lot of audiobooks that way and
Nice.
no
Yeah.
one disturbs me at all. And it's a really nice way to, no matter what, get some sort of education in that day. Even if like otherwise I wouldn't have. If I do that for like a half hour, 45 minutes, it's like, I'm always good. So that, the speed, a lot of speed training right now too.
Mm.
So I'm not pushing the aerobic to like a crazy level, but I'm doing it real frequently. So I'm generally not letting my heart rate exceed like 140, usually more to like the 120s
Okay.
and doing that every day. So what the nice about Stairmaster is you can actually track that and not be like, you know what I mean? So then you're like, okay, like obviously if you're at this level, you go up one, it's still the same. It's like an overload of sorts because you've improved there.
Hmm.
And then we're focusing on my speed training, and then strength training is more um focused on like kind of more like functional or tactical movements, if you will. And that's so basically in a nutshell, my priority is to move like I'm 50 pounds lighter, have the speed and move and agility of somebody 50 pounds lighter, but the strength of somebody 50 pounds heavier.
Hmm.
So where that can improve the most right now would be um on the aerobic side of things, and that's made some pretty good strides since about probably not to the end of December,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
right
Yeah, I
around
see
Christmas
you on over
time.
social media.
Yeah, so that I do post a lot of my stuff in there in the Instagram stories and stuff, but a lot of it's, that's why I don't do it as often. And now it's just because a lot of the stuff's kind of boring. It's like, okay, this guy's on a
Oh.
Stairmaster. You want to keep
Yeah.
watching this, like, or like you just put a picture of rucking or something. But
Hmm.
like today, I did the Stairmaster this morning for 30 minutes with a 45-pound weighted vest, and I have an 80-pound one too. I like the 45-pound one a lot though, because the way it's fitted more so. But then I'll go run hill sprints here at like about what times I gotta check what time it gets dark. I want to finish right when it gets dark. So I gotta
Yeah.
figure out exactly about 5:15 or so. And then that's what I'll do today. So it's like sometimes with these kind of training, you have to break it up more. So like the difference is it's instead of like one long session, it might be two, two shorter ones to like prevent any kind of interference and just, making a session less effective in general.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's great to think of, like the balance of the aerobic and the strength. A lot of times people kind of do one or the other to the extremes, and
Right.
it's good to have the balance there. Yeah.
I've
Um,
never, I've pushed both before. I got into a crazy aerobic kick about 15 years ago.
oh, what'd you do?
A lot of running. And then I, you know, and then, I got into like, only intervals and all that. So like I've found out I get like about the best results if I can, because the thing is with the aerobic training, the good part about it is if even with intervals, you haven't been training them, you regenerate real quickly between sets and you recover better between workouts even. So
Hmm.
that was the first thing I noticed and why kind of besides it being healthy and all and needed and all this stuff, I noticed like, when I do like the hill sprints and stuff before, they're for speed and power. So it wasn't like I was trying to like, I'm gonna do like, however many and throw up. But I noticed, like, say, I'm going to rest for 3 minutes. Honestly, like 45 seconds later, I'm, oh, wow, I feel great. I'm ready to go. Where before it's like, the rest period was planned out like for before, where it's like, okay, I'm ready to go now, but it took the full recovery.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely does help. Like I know a lot of the powerlifters that I've coached, they're
Hmm.
familiar with your rucking protocol,
That's
and
perfect for that.
yeah, they love that because it is a way for them to balance that aerobic health with the strength, but also they've said the same exact thing is they notice their recovery is a lot better and they don't have to be in the gym for 3 hours a day.
You don't have to be in the gym, and then you also just, yeah, and it shouldn't add. So people always ask me like, where do you go with this? And like I said, the kind of rule of thumb is sort of like abstract and vague, but is this shouldn't be adding additional stress to your training. So like this is not an additional stressor. This should help you regenerate. So like
Hmm.
what about a stressor? Something's gonna cause you to recover further from. This should enhance what you're already doing recovery wise, not add something additional to recover from. And you
Yes.
gotta be careful with like powerlifting and stuff because a lot of people, myself included, is like you want to push everything to the limit. And it's like tough. Like, oh, okay, I did this today and I was fine. Why don't I push a little further tomorrow? That's fine if you're going for an endurance training, but then it no longer becomes like the original intended purpose.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, that's so we touched on nutrition, we touched on training.
mhm.
As much as you would feel comfortable sharing.
Sure.
Like in regards to personal things you want to do, like I know for myself, like I track. Are you familiar with the five love languages?
Yeah. They're
Okay.
like the ones that were like, it's like some people are words of affirmation and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife and I have done that, and one of the things I kind of track what I do each day or throughout the week is whether I'm touching her love languages, because I want to make sure our relationship, is always growing and evolving. Are there things that you think of in your personal life? You mentioned audiobook and wanting to learn something. Are there a couple markers you have each day or each week that you try to achieve?
That's a good question. So I don't have like an exact metric like you say you do right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one thing, like funny you say that, is like I found really good with our family members here is just one thing I do is like every once in a while just randomly just leave them a note in the morning and leave it out and
Oh,
have them read it. And that seems to work for everybody. Um, so I think making sure I try to do something every day with everybody here, like something like special. It could be something small, like we're just gonna walk into the block and talk or something,
yeah.
or it could be something big, like I'm taking you to the zoo on Wednesday kind of thing. So it just depends on the magnitude, but something like that every day is kind of like the main marker with that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And then also, like I say, like from the physical side, some sort of physical activity every day. It could be something not too strenuous. Like on Saturday, all I did was because I had that seminar in Kansas City was and it was like I'd planned to do a lot on the plane and the Wi-Fi wasn't working. So
Oh,
kind of set me back a little bit. So what I did was just go on there. They had a sort of, I don't know what this thing would be called. It was not an elliptical and it was not a Stairmaster. It was sort of like a hybrid. I've never seen it before.
Hmm.
Did that for 20 minutes. And besides the seminar was obviously all walking around and stuff and coaching
Yeah.
people. But like, so I'll try to do some, I make sure I don't try, I make sure I do something every day and
Yeah.
physically like that. And, I'm trying to think like a client of mine was saying during COVID, he said, he's actually the baseball coach at Vanderbilt University. And he was saying, he's like, this is my like 1100 and 47th day straight of working out. Like I
Wow.
haven't trained like 3 days a week, like of like hard training, but just like walking, rucking or something like that. And that's kind of how I've been is like I haven't kept track, but I mean it's been like at least a year of doing something physical every day with an intended purpose, not like, if
Yeah.
I'm saying if I take my 3-year-old, 2-year-old to the park, that's not really to me like I'm saying something like an intentional physical. It could be short though. It
Hmm.
could be, I'm going to do like, 10 sets of push-ups or something, but it's usually like at least 20 minutes or so. And I feel
Yeah.
better that way because like I feel like we were real fortunate here, like no COVID kind of stuff or like any kind of like sicknesses. And I think that kind of helps keep the immunities up if you're not doing it to an absolute extreme, because like they said, the aerobic work should help you regenerate and recover, not, make it worse.
True. Yeah. There's an amount of exercise that improves the immune system, but if you overdo it, it kind of
Right.
crashes.
There's like
Yeah.
Olympic athletes and stuff that get more, studies show actually get ill more often.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. One last thing I kind of want to touch on
sure.
was um, trying to think how to word this is. What do you have any guideposts, or do you look to a person or a resource that kind of drives you to continue to improve yourself, or kind of gives you focal points to keep going after? So an example would be is
Mhm.
like I would classify myself as Christian.
Okay.
So I think of, the Bible as like a
Right.
motivating kind of guidepost for what I should do or shouldn't
Absolutely.
do. Do you have anything like that that kind of
I think
helps
definitely
motivate you?
that the Bible, if like what's right and wrong of the final say. I mean, I think we could all do better there and all that, but I think at the end of the day, to me, that's going to be the final word.
Mm-hmm.
I think, also on earth of more like motivating of what's not going to like, not that you're out there to win this, to win people's approval for nothing, but at the end of the day, I think what I actually at church many years ago, the pastor said something. I don't remember what the context was. I don't remember if it was like sinning or something, but it's basically, would you be embarrassed if someone put this on the front page of the paper?
Oh
It's
yeah.
like a good one because you think about it, if like you got mad at, some waiter for some stupid reason, you probably don't want that in front of the newspaper. Now, if the waiter's spitting your food in front of your face and you got mad about it, I mean, yeah, I better get mad about it, right? It's fine if it's on
Yeah.
the front page of the newspapers. I think that's kind of like a good, if you're ever in doubt, like if it's on the front page of the newspaper, would you be embarrassed? That's kind of a good kind of like if you're unsure about something.
Yeah. That works. I like that. That's a really good one. So on your path to improvement, as you've
Right.
improved in business, as you've improved in your own life, however you would define that,
Sure.
I'm assuming the pathway has not been a smooth sailing, even trajectory, exactly the way you planned it. It's probably just you do what you can, when you can, how you can.
Right. Well, I think basically what my quote unquote secret or method
Mm-hmm.
or whatever is developing, I'll call it like developing a talent set. So what that means is I was talking about this the other day. So a talent set would be like not selling out or whoring out, if you will. It's more of like, all this stuff has like I guess, commonality. So it's not like I'm gonna like, be like strength coaching here and like trying out for like movie roles here and doing this, that, and the other of like things that are unrelated. It's like, okay, I'm training, strength athletes, right? So I have to get stronger. Okay. Well, tactical athletes, basically their base for what they do is strength as well. So there's some transference there. Like, okay, the rucking worked for them. but the rucking also works for powerlifters. So if I can develop things that are related, that is a talent set. So then, so what I can do to remain true to what I'm doing is keep pushing forward, but then at the same time, kind of let the market decide to a degree of what I'm going to actually bring out to market. So like, since it's a talent set, you have, all these different working levers at once, but they're interrelated. So it's not like you have to change what you're doing or who you are. It's like, okay, well, like I need to provide a living for my family. So I'm doing like, say, like I'm like for the tactical, that's the easiest one to go. I had no intention of going there. All I know is I was done powerlifting, and I told you how I want to train is
Yeah.
move like I'm lighter and have the strength like I'm heavier, essentially. I had no intended purpose of going for this market, but I like have a lot of friends that are cops, military, and all that. So, happy to help kind of thing. And people like, hey, I'm like the captain of the SWAT team, and one of the guys from South Carolina. I see how you're training. Like, I want to train like this. This would help us. Okay, this is okay. So before I know it, a lot of people are wanting to do this. And so then, I started doing it, and they all start getting good results and all this stuff. And then I got an ISSA tactical course out of the deal, along with a lot more clients and seminars and all this stuff. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like I pursued a market. I pursue a talent set that's compatible though. So like, if you're like, say, speaking on mindset or something, you talk about this, that, and the other, goal setting, a daily routine, whatever you have, and
Yeah.
everybody keeps coming back to the daily routine, and you're gonna do a seminar or something, maybe you need to focus on the daily routine because you already were talking about it. Like
Yeah.
it's just how like COVID hit, like how to do well in COVID, like Jailhouse Strong, all these books are about
Mhm.
training with minimal equipment. So since the talent set was there, and you have like the know-how and the confidence to capitalize, you do. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing is don't become one-dimensional on one thing. But then the other side is like you saw a lot of people kind of go out of business in COVID because
Yeah.
they became untrue to what they'd been doing. They'd be like, oh, well, like, basically like you need every fancy gadget and gizmo to like, maximize hypertrophy of your pecs, or you're just a dumb powerlifter or something, right? Well, then
Yeah.
all of a sudden these people are, oh, well, like how to work out at home. I'm like, hey, wait a second. You're the one that's saying you can't work out at home. You say you have to go to these gyms with 100 different machines. So now you're the at-home workout. No, you're not. You just
Yeah.
know your business is failing because of this circumstance, and you're just trying to make money to stay relevant. You know what I mean? So like that's not part of your talent set. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what's allowed me is just developing a wide talent set, but making sure it's all somehow related because
Hmm.
it's all part of each other. Like the powerlifter can benefit from an aspect of tactical training like rucking. They're not going to be going for like, you know, 3 hours of 12-minute miles, the 80 pounds, like up a mountain. But if they can walk around their neighborhood with a 45-pound vest for 45 minutes and not be gassed, they're going to, live
Yeah.
longer and recover better. The tactical athlete's not going to probably go for a world record in the deadlift, but if they can do over 2 times their body weight, you're going to be able to produce more ground force and be more explosive and faster. So it all connects. It's called
Yeah.
what talent set. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah. I like that. That an extreme example would be Tom Haviland in
Yeah,
regards to like having that strength to do anything amazing. He isn't necessarily a world record holder or anything, but he damn sure could be.
right.
Yeah. Hmm.
And he is probably if you started like factoring some of the stuff you go put it this way, they're not official records, but I would think nobody else could do it. But
Oh,
that's an
absolutely.
example of like, like just doing what you do. So you keep like a lot of people have come to me because of training him and stuff. And it's just because you do a good job with what you have instead of like that's already part of it. And that's kind of like interesting with the evolution with him is initially it was more, I don't say powerlifting, but then we started doing like, okay, let's get like some off-season type of stuff. We'll get some strongman stuff in there. And he had an athletic background before we know it. It's like a lot of people when they start doing this stuff, have a lot of fun with it. Like, okay, I want to actually go that direction more. Like I'm
Yeah.
not, because a lot of people aren't necessarily powerlifting. They want to, but they want to be strong. So the like where CrossFit and places have missed like the boat is for one, a lack of like I like the idea behind it. I don't like the lack of organization. Like for example, your workout of the day, if you go once a week or twice a week should be different if you go 7 days a week, and it's not. Like,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
so they'd be like, okay, well, like obviously, as you know, you work with people. If someone tells you you can only train twice a week, you only do the top priorities because I mean you only got twice a week, right?
All you got time for.
Well, like,
Yes.
hey, dude, like, I inherited $10 million and I'm just gonna take a year off and train.
Yeah.
And like I have every recovery modality at my disposal and every piece of equipment and unlimited time. So I want to train twice a day, 7 days a week. Well, then you can get into like a lot of like, okay, well, we're gonna like really like maximize your forearm hypertrophy with specialized training in addition to the blah blah blah. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you have all that time. So you got to look at it that way too.
Yeah. Very true. Well, I know you're running short on time.
Yep, I got like 7 minutes here.
Okay. The one last thing
For
was I
sure.
really just wanted to ask in regards to resources that have helped you in personal success, personal growth. So, not necessarily training nutrition resources, but more so just trying to be a better person, try to improve your
Uh-huh.
character. Have there been, can you think of a couple top recommendations that you would give to people?
I think like well, one obviously is like you said, I think you could read the Bible and stuff, and if you're involved, if it, you know, a good church, you don't have to have a church, but like that could be a good obvious resource. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is people you surround yourself with too,
Oh,
or
yes. Yes.
or don't surround yourself with. Like
That's
that's
true.
people think when they talk about okay, like the people you're around, like you know, whoever five most are kind of influence where you are kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They think, oh, you know, the same people talk about like cutting out bad influence. It doesn't have to be if there's somebody's a bad influence, it doesn't need to be a big movie or anything. You don't need to make a big deal if you're going to kind of go your separate ways. Just kind of like go your separate ways and don't make a big deal. You don't have to tell them they're a jerk or like
Yeah.
they're on the path to failure. If you've kind of outgrown that relationship in your season of your life, you can move on without being a jerk about it or making a big stink about it. Just go your separate ways, and hopefully the person comes around. Doesn't mean you won't help them if they need help. It just means like if you're trying to like, you know, focus on being a better person, you're training, whatever, and you know, they're just, you know, a drugged out zombie all day. It doesn't mean you wouldn't help them if they need help, but it means like you don't need to be, you know, hanging around them when they're, you know, smoking meth all day or something. It's
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're
Ideally,
abandoning
reduce
them.
your
It's just,
exposure. Mm-hmm.
you know, at what point are you aiding and abetting? I'm not a philosopher. I don't know exactly where the line is, but I do know if someone's making really bad, you know, kind of immoral decisions, and you're just going to sit there and at what point do you become part of it? I don't have a good answer for that, but I know it's not you're not helping them or yourself. You know, if you're just hanging
True.
around acting like nothing's happening.
True.
So I
Yeah.
think that, and I think just hanging around good people, like for the, I know it's not about training, but like for training was like, you know, like good mentors like Fred Hatfield and people, and you know, luckily I had really good parents and stuff. So like it wasn't you know, it wasn't always, and then also like had a good ability to discern what I'm trying to learn from somebody. So like if somebody, for example, like growing up even in high school or something, be around like some crazy bodybuilders or powerlifters that like kind of had messes of personal lives, I
Yeah.
could see that hey, this person has a lot to offer on training. Like they want to like talk to me or train with me. But like if you look outside of the gym, they're kind of like a disaster on a personal level. So like I was smart enough to like see that like, you know, like if I'm trying to learn from you, what do you bring to the table? Like,
Yes.
so you know what I mean? So like you could like, you know, like it's like if you put up like on Instagram or something and like say you put up like a quote of somebody, they'll be like, this person did this or whatever, like, you know, like we'll talk about Henry Rollins. Well, he's like a self-proclaimed socialist or something. Okay, maybe he is, I don't know. But this is a good quote about lifting. I don't know like much about him personally. So, you know, I do know I like this quote. I do know I like what it could like I can take from it. So like I have a good ability to discern of what's like useful from, you
Yeah.
know, because I've studied a lot of NLP. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
Neuro-linguistic programming. So it's like what Tony Robbins has it too. It's called, he calls it neuroassociative conditioning because he started there too, but he thought the NLP people were like too like cult-like-ish, where they think like it's like their kind of study of stuff's like the only way you can look at it. It's basically like how you frame situations. A lot of most like hypnotists now would be like somewhat schooled in it, but a lot of it's like just how you would frame a situation and things like that. And like that's a big thing from like how is this useful is one of the things you
Yes.
study of like, okay, well, like let's just say like, you know, you're obviously not but like dishonest scumbag, whatever, but you
Well,
like
thank you.
you really have like a great training system. So the NLP would view it as, okay, what's useful is like I can learn these techniques from you, and I can go at the gym and watch you. It doesn't mean like, because one of the techniques is called mirroring. You like would
Oh yeah.
mirror what you want. So like they would say, like, for
Mhm.
example, if like I really want to get in your head or like get learn from you, I'd even like start mirroring your physiology and stuff, like how you're like your posture and all that, so I can feel what you're feeling, kind of thing. But one of the things is like they talk about what is useful, what's good feedback. So the way you look at it is like, oh, this person may not be perfect, but I can learn. So what is it Martin Luther King said? Every man's
Yes.
superior in some way or something. I think Martin Luther King said every man's superior in one way or some way or something. I think that's definitely true of like having a ability to like see what good somebody brings to something, but not be so jaded that I think, oh, well, like just so they're good at training, that means they're like a stand-up citizen or something.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful point is there's almost always something you learn from somebody, even if what you're learning is what not to do. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. There's that
Yeah.
too.
Yes. And I think that's a big takeaway because I've actually had that question posed to me, and it can be challenging to sum up. Like I'm 40 years old,
Mhm.
and it can be challenging to sum up what you've learned in 40 years. Like it's not from one book, it's not from one person, it's always from a collective of
No.
experiences. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head is taking the perspective in moments or with interactions is what can I learn from this in a good way, or what can I learn what to avoid. And I found that that always helps me just become better myself, is looking for the good in other people or looking for the lesson of what not to do from other people.
Right. I remember there's a guy at the gym, one of these guys, he was training a bunch of pro athletes and he had no clue. When I was real young, I had no clue. This guy would be like, that guy sucks. He didn't know what he's doing. I was just watching him. I'm like, yeah, I mean, he's definitely doesn't know what he's doing, but like he's clearly something's gone right. He's getting these people in here. So what has he done? I was sort of watching him. I'm like, this guy is like the most likable, best talker. So the agent or somebody brings him in here and he schmoozes them. Cause even like when
Yeah.
they're getting, I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I don't want to use his training techniques, but like instead of us being over here like intellectually superior, while he's killing it, like maybe what if you could pick up his skill set there, but then retain your skills in the field, then you're really doing well, and like I
Yeah.
think like that was kind of like what they like started studying the NLP stuff pretty early on,
Hmm.
because I listened to one of when it was like on a CD or tape or something, one of Tony Robbins's book, and he said something about neuroassociative conditioning, and I started investigating that, and I'm like, so basically, he took NLP and like he's right in what he was saying. He said like a lot. If you talk to a lot of people who do it, they're like, I mean, I don't say it's like a religion or something, but it's because there's no religious It's not like they always say it's not good or
Cult or
bad. It's
something.
it's
Yeah.
just studying it, like you know what I mean. So it's like
Mhm.
a lot of people, I've heard of most people. It's not religious at all either way. It's just, but some people have. One time I talked to a pastor said about. He said like, I don't know why some people don't like it. He's like, if like I want to like if I have a big church and I like the way Walt Disney run his company, I might check out how Walt Disney run his company. It just means like the managerial process, not like everything he did. And that's kind of how NLP is. It gives you a really good ability to start studying what's useful and then look at things for what they are versus like just because training doesn't mean your life's good. You could be like, I mean, maybe you make $1 million a year, but you're 3 million in debt. Who knows? So like,
True.
I can
Yeah.
say, hey, you know what? You've really bad spending habits and investing habits, but you're bringing $1 million a year. So I'm going to take that. I want to. What are you doing to
Yes.
get clients in? I don't want to know about what you do after you get the money, but how do you get that money in? Like, I can learn something from you. Like, I really
Yeah.
gave me the ability.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing is not throwing people away like wholesale. There's often stuff you can learn, and keeping an open mind is just going to help you overall in the long term
Yeah.
anyhow. Yeah, yeah. Well, I do genuinely appreciate your
Oh,
time.
my pleasure.
So I encourage the listeners, please go to joshstrength.com, check out all your ebooks. You have a really good, you give a blend of like nutrition training and like the mindset.
Right.
And I really like the collection you have.
Okay.
So congratulations on that.
Thank
and
you.
so I encourage everybody to go to that. And then if anybody wants to reach out to you, would that be the best?
Best place to do it. I got a contact form. You go in there. I also have a
Okay.
newsletter on there. It's free. So if you
Oh,
go on
nice.
there, sign up for my newsletter, you'll get sent a free 8 week deadlift program. Which one I will say, well, yeah, 8 week deadlift program I made for free. And the hill sprint program is 7 weeks. So you get both
Okay.
of those for free. And that's also a way to contact me if you want to contact me personally about working one on one or nothing. But like the thing is, I'm not trying to say that there really is no strings attached. I
Nice.
mean, like if you sign up for the newsletter, it's not like you're gonna get like a month later, like, hey, by the way, like if you want to continue, it's $30 a month. It's free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that'll be great. I'll be the first one signing up.
okay, we'll appreciate
Yes.
it.
Yes. Okay. So for the listeners, if you have any questions for me or you have any questions about the podcast, just reach out. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. And if you do share it, please include Josh's website so people can go visit him and see his resources. And then if you like the podcast, you can consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on our website. And then if you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. Well, thank you, Josh, for being here.
Thanks, Robert. I'll talk to you
Yes,
later, but
yes.
have a
And
good
then,
one.
as always, I hope this was helpful. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.